Oh my God, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. I believe I'm live. So now you've got to watch me deal with all of this stuff that I have to deal with to even play this game or to live stream to you. Thank God. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. All right. We're all good now, I think. So here's what I do. I use this program called the Playroom to broadcast directly from my PlayStation. So I got to do this. I got to get a second screen so I can... Oh, wait a minute. I got to actually start. Here's my little studio here. Good thing I've got all of that. You take that music off. That's annoying. And that's close to being it. 1 second here. Let me just confirm that I'm live streaming. Woo! Woo! Yeah, let me get this link. Oh, there's me again. Let me post this where I need to post it, and then I'm good to go. Thank you, Jeebus. Okay. Blap. Post. Okay. Wow. That was some stress. For the first time in like forever, my PlayStation did not want to broadcast to the internet. So I freaked out for a few minutes there, but here I am at 20 minutes late. I do apologize for that. I was on time. Okay. So today we are going to be looking at, in detail, a very famous piece of music written for clarinet alone. And I have the music for you here. This is the first page of this piece. Let me make sure my brightness is good. It is. So this is the first page. There's 7 pages to this piece. Let me talk just a little bit on the outset about this piece, and then we'll get into a lot of detail. So, this piece was written in 1981. You could see in the very last page, blah, 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 blah. Down here at the bottom, it says, December 1981, New York. It's for solo clarinets in seven pages. I'll go through all of them, of course. But let's go through them briefly here. You can sort of see how gnarly this piece is. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, and page 7. It doesn't do a whole lot of letting up. All right. Every time you turn the page, there's a new difficulty to deal with. So I first came in contact with this piece in around 1993. That's when I graduated from college. And I had a summer where I was teaching at a governor's school in North Carolina and nothing to learn. And I decided to get this piece. It was relatively new at the time, only 12 years old, and people didn't play it. I'd never heard it played, actually. So I ordered it and I looked at it and I was like, holy bejesus, this thing is insane. And it is on some level. But then I learned it. I worked on it quite hard with a couple of great teachers that I have to name check. One, Nathan Williams, so I first started working with this piece on, and he really led me to understand it. And then second, Elsa Verder, who I studied with at Michigan State, who added like a real second level of understanding. And then in '97, I met Joan. I played her clarinet concerto for her, which is an insanely... She says it's the hardest piece she's ever written, and I'm not going to disagree with her. And we hit it off, and then we spent part of the summer together at a festival in Connecticut, and since then we've been I'd say friends and partners, and I've produced concerts for her. Recently in the city, they needed someone to play this piece in particular, and she said, call me. So I've had this piece in my rep now for almost 30 years. I've probably played it in public performance as much as any other piece I've ever played, and it's been very successful for me. So I'm going to try to give you away all of the secrets today to what I'm doing. Okay? So let's get started. Gotta have privacy. So the one thing that I truly love, well, there are a few things that I truly love about this piece, but two things about it that make it stand out for me as a piece of real genius and a piece of real use for clarinetists. One, every time I come back and work on this piece, it makes me a better clarinet player. And two, every time I come back to this piece, I find something new in it that I had not found before. And again, I've been playing this piece for the better part of 30 years. So the fact that I can sit here 27 years or whatever after I first learned it and still find things in it that I didn't realize were there before, that's the mark of something that's really, really good. All right? So Joan's concept for this piece is a little different than mine. Joan's concept for this piece is of almost a literal portrait of a large bird. Say like a large eagle, a bird of prey, all right, a raptor, but a big one. And it swoops and it soars and it dives and it floats. And all of those things I completely buy into and agree with. But for me, it's not really a literal portrait of anything. It's more of an impression of the feeling of flight and the feeling of momentum and intensity. And those are the two things that are really, really important. Those are two of the things that are really, really, really important when even approaching this piece, is ideas of momentum and intensity. So, the very beginning of this piece, 3 Ps. So, just to make sure, like, you know, I'm hopefully dealing with different levels of people. Maybe some of you don't know much about music at all. But piano, this marking that you see here means soft. And a lot of times you'll see 2 Ps. And every now and again, you'll see 3. Sometimes you'll see even 4. But 3 Ps is going to definitely denote something. And that something is that you should be super soft, right? And that is one of the things that the clarinet actually does really, really well, and it's not that difficult to do. But it's such a specialized thing compared to what other woodwind instruments are capable of that it always gets a good reaction. People are like, wow, how do you make things come out as so soft? But it's actually not that hard. I wish that I could get some praise for doing something difficult. But let's take a look. I'm going to get as close as I can to this microphone. So if we were to start, let me start on a medium sound and go down to 3 Ps. So here's a P. Clarinet has an incredible ability to fade out like that, but I'm going to, instead of doing that, I'm going to fade in, which is not that difficult either. You just got to do it. And the piece will not begin until the sound goes. So when I start to sort of blow on this, I don't really know exactly when the sound is going to start. Okay, and that's okay. That's what I want. I want this tension of, when is this piece going to start? So something, I'm going to get close to the microphone so I can really see when I fade in here. I hope you can hear that on the live stream. It's extraordinarily quiet, but it's what the clarinet can do really, really well. Let me do that again. It's almost like a sonic illusion. It sounds like some sort of background static or something that's going to get there. And Joan, what Joan is thinking about at the beginning of this piece is, it's on a clear day. You look up in the sky, and out of the corner of your eye, you can see a little dot, right? There's a bird circling way, way up in the sky. But when you look right at it, it disappears, right? When you look right at it, it's so tiny it goes away. But when you look away, you can see it. It's just so barely there, so high up that you can barely see it. And that's what she's going for at the beginning of this piece. So then we set up two notes, this D to G sharp, which is a tritone, which is going to be one of the most important intervals in this piece, and it shows directly into a whole tone scale. Right in the middle, a tritone is the very middle of an octave. So that's the first four notes that she gives you. Those three, and then back to the D, are kind of your big intervals as we start. So, tempo marking 40 to 44. I could tell you 100% that everything Joan writes in this piece is very, very specific and very, very intentional. So, if we were to be intentional and go all the way back to 40 on your metronome, it's this. It's a pretty slow beat. Okay? So she's definitely telling you to take your time. But I actually kind of do this in tempo. I'm going to do it once without the metronome and then once with, and you'll see that I'm actually following what's written on this. And I'll kind of give you a little nod when I feel like the sound has come out and I'm actually starting the piece. That seems like two notes that exist in a vacuum, and that's what it should feel like when the listener's listening. But if I actually put a metronome on here, I can kind of, let me start with the more obvious D. Okay, I'm going to start with not a fade in, but just a PPPD, and you'll see. Here we go. So we go. Yep, so you got 10 beats at 40 of this note, and then that. So even though I am, sorry, let me turn my wireless off so I'm not inundated by text from some jabroni named Andrew. Anyway, two other things. In the middle of this D, this G sharp can occasionally cause a little bit of, this fingering on the G sharp could occasionally cause a little bit of a blip. So in the middle of that D, I actually go softly, and then going from the D to G sharp is just a question of doing this. There's no way you're going to hear that that's happening. So let me just do that first two notes again, in context. This little swell here, poco, poco, poco. There's a lot of these little poco. That means a little bit. So really, I'm just looking to warm it up. In fact, you can see here, this is Elsa's handwriting, Elsa Verdere, color. Color. So we're not looking necessarily for something that's so obviously, right? We're looking for something that's more, it's super subtle. Okay, so look, those are the first two notes, okay? If that was too wonky for you, if I'm going into too much detail, now is your time to bail. But if this is working for you, this is what it's going to be like for a few hours here. So let's do this. Okay, so now I'm going to bring it back to regular size. You can see here that Joan wants me to use this, Elsa wants me to use the side fingering for the F sharp here. I'm going to use the regular fingering. This is a really high quality scan of my original music, which is going to be backwards for you. It's just the way that this camera works. But this is my music from 1993. This is the only copy that I've ever had, and it's like it's a holy relic, because it's got my handwriting, it's got Elsa's handwriting, it has my teacher Nathan's handwriting, it has some of Joan's handwriting. It's just something that I hope I never ever lose. But this is what I made these scans from. You can see there's a little stain here and stuff like that. But I wanted you to be able to see, especially those of you who might have studied with Elsa like me, what Elsa's kind of notes are on this. Now, occasionally you're going to have this in the middle of it. You could tell, I should have mentioned at the top, this is an unmetered piece. There's no time signature. That doesn't mean there's no rhythm, okay? It just means that she's not going to divide up the beats into measures and bars like you normally would. But there is a lot of rhythm involved in this, and in fact, there's a lot of rhythm involved in Joan's overall kind of style. Okay, so even though the beginning of this is super slowly, I actually try to work on it at the beginning with a metronome. So I'm going to play up to here. This 3/8 bar, I'm just going to either make one beat or two beats, whatever I feel like at the time, probably one. I'm going to play it like in exact tempo and see how that works. Okay, let me look at my music here instead of yours. I'll give you another nod when I've started this note, okay? With the metronome. So, even though it's quite slow, going back on a few reeds here today, because I'm going to try to play this for you guys at the end, and if I want to use one reed all the way through while I practice, I'm a dead man. So I got to keep switching off here, make sure that I don't shred too much, because this is a reed killer. So look, I just did that completely in strict tempo. Okay, I'm going to try to do the same thing now without the metronome, but while keeping the same idea in my head. And you can see that it both exists within that and in a sort of timeless fashion, which is what Joan is asking for. She wants a little bit of a timeless feel, but she doesn't want you to do it completely on your own. She's very, very specific. She wants it in this particular context. So, about not that reed? How about this reed? Don't you wish you played an instrument that felt a little different multiple times a day? I wish once, like in my entire lifetime, I would put on a different reed and be like, oh, that feels exactly like the last one that I put on. Literally has never happened. Kiss my butt. Here we go. So, same thing. I love being a clarinet player. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. Let's go back to the original reed that I had and forget about it. You get the gist. Now, get to the second line here. We're going to get our first signal. She signals a lot. This octave with a crescendo idea is a big marker in the structure of this piece, and when a section may be ending and when a new section may be beginning. So, looking at the second line, starting at that 3/8, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2. So, poco crescendo. You want to make a difference, please, between piano and mezzo piano and pianissimo and 3Ps. It's very, very, very subtle. It's extremely subtle. Now, so, mezzo piano, subito pianissimo. So, medium soft, suddenly with an accent, but softer even still. So that's why there's a big question mark over top of that, because I've seen people interpret that in a lot of different ways. And what I try to do is I try to keep it within mezzo piano until I attack that long note, then come back to pianissimo. So when you have these octave displacements that signal these things, oftentimes she gives you like a full-on fortissimo and then a pianissimo answer. And what I really try to do there with those answers at the high notes is have the most sort of pure, colorless, almost harmonic, like you're touching a harmonic on a string. So first of all, as I play this G sharp, I start to vent a couple of things. I vent this, I vent the fork, and then I eventually vent the C sharp, G sharp key, because all of those things raise the pitch microscopically. But while I'm blowing so hard, the pitch on the clarinet is going to tend to dip. It's going to tend to get flatter without it. I'm keeping pretty good control over what's happening. But if I don't, keep my embouchure totally solid and my bottom jaw into the reed, then that G sharp becomes like a wild beast that refuses to be tamed. So in all of these long crescendos, it's really important to maintain the discipline that you have in your embouchure. If you start to let go, you're going to get this really, really ugly sound. Even more, the more air I start pushing through my clarinet, the more disciplined I am about staying firm, solid, relentlessly into my reed. Don't let my reed vibrate completely out of control. Yes. So going on, what you want to do, I think, at the very end of that G sharp, this long G sharp here, I promise we will go a little faster than this occasionally. But this beginning section is pretty important. Then at the very, very, very last moment, as you're getting into these grace notes, just a little bit of something, like spin the air just a little bit. Give it a little bit of a shine. It's very, very subtle. Then in this section that I'm about to play, you want to make a big difference between these grace notes and the actual written 16th notes. It's twice as fast. So if we're at 40, we're at 80 now. Right, it's not that fast on those 16 notes, but if you preface them by going, so from the previous note, this G sharp here, and there's that fade out again. There's our special effect that Joan really generously gives us. Okay, I would use take all advantage of that. So this is sort of the very opening idea that you could really use the opportunity of this opening slow softness to set the stage in the audience and the hall for the entirety of your performance. Okay? So when you come out, you're by yourself on the stage. You own the next 10 to 11 minutes. It's your responsibility, but it's also your spot. So you can really use this opening, which is very striking and very kind of like, oh, I hear that, to set the stage for the rest of the piece to be your personal coloring book. Okay, so take your time. In silences, I like to actually listen. In breaths and beats where I have off, can I hear the lights? Can I hear the fan? Can I hear people squirming? Usually not, but you can hear squeaks and stuff. If you can, in the silences, actually hear those tiny sounds, that means that it's quiet. That means that people are listening. And they're listening because you've given them something interesting to spend their time listening to. So I'll deal with that when I come back and play it. Let's go on to the next section. Meno mosso is a little bit less. Okay? A little bit less fast in this case. So let's look at her markings so that we know, look how specific she is. Delicate and clear. Grace notes should not be too fast. So she's looking for something with some degree of elegance. She doesn't want she's looking more for believe it or not, that's the phrase. Even though this is something she's going to do a lot. She's going to use a note as a pedal. So really the melody goes, are the grace notes. Couple of things. First of all, that's really lovely. I think it's a really beautiful idea that she puts together here. I use one and two for the A sharps, like this one. Oh, I'm sorry. The second note here. That A sharp. This A sharp. Anytime you see a bracket, by the way, that is a note that I made to myself from listening to recordings, or listening to my own recording and trying to make sure that I had the right takes. So 1 and 1, or 1 and 2. Should be very simple. And then when we go to the G's, I stick with this partial and go fully open. And you can get away with that by making sure that your that you voice those D's slightly high, because the natural fingering with is more a little sharper than the open. And also to really just have the most open, easy tone quality. If I'm really more direct, you're really going to notice it also has a slightly brighter effect. So if I'm really just kind of breathing into my clarinet in a way, then I get this. So from the beginning there, bene mosso. Sounds really nice in context as it is. I don't have any breaks there. I stay within the same partial on my clarinet, and it just kind of allows me to go on. Also, again, look, this is going to happen a lot in Joan's music. It seems like it's random or whatever, but this is very specific writing here. So if we start from here, I'm thinking be-dum, 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 be-dum. And it works. So let me beat that same thing, starting on this C to G sharp. Right? She's like, this is a lot like Brahms, actually, and I hope that's not sacrilegious to some of you, but Brahms does a lot of this metrical modulation and metrical lengthening and shortening. And Joan is really specific about it. And when you get up to here, the poco poco a cell that we're getting ready to hit, again, she's specific about it again, except now we're going faster. 1, 2, ta, 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 ti, ta, ti, Sorry, there's an eighth note there. So she is giving you this metric accelerando, combining a real accelerando with, look, 4/16, 4/16, 3/16, 3/16, 3/16, 3/16, 8, 2 triplets, 2 triplets, 2 triplets, 8, 8. So she's taken the large beats and shrunk them herself and given you a accelerando on top. So woo, she's really wants you to move it there. So we're absolutely moving from one idea to another. And if I might add, here's another signal, C to C, okay? She likes to signal the beginnings of and ends of small sections and larger sections with this octave call. So let me start at the beginning of that line that says poco accelerando. This one right here, this line. God, it's hard to talk and play as much. Your reed dries out in 5 seconds flat. Oh, 2 things. I go open on all of these G's, all of these D's until here. Then I finger these normally. Excuse me. And then for the trill, I like to trill holding down my C and then trilling with this second trill key. So I'm actually using 3 different D's on this in this line, and tell me if you can tell the difference. Poco a cello, poco a cello. Now, probably could have gotten to a better piano. If I were to criticize myself, that's what would be my criticism. Let me do that line again, and let me go forward a little bit. So now we start to move into the meat of the difficult parts of this piece. Let me swap out my horn real quick because I'm getting a little bit of condensation while we talk about it. These are all little 3-note cells that Joan likes to play around with. It's like her own key, her own tonality that she uses here. And she's actually used it in this piece before. And I'm about to show you where. Okay. It's funny, Joan told me this story about this piece. People study this piece pretty intently, and one person did their entire doctoral dissertation, like 150 to 200 page paper, purely on this piece. And as part of finishing that project, she interviewed Joan, and she asked her. She went through all of this like I am, and she sees where all of these different materials come from and what she's using to write. And she says, Joan, I can kind of figure out where everything comes from, except for this note. And I'll show you the note she's talking about. I'll get to it. That note right there, like, I cannot for the life of me understand why you use that or where that comes from. So could you explain that to me? And Joan said, I thought it sounded good. So she is both, she's both really, really specific and is also intuitive enough of a composer to know when she can just sort of like move outside of her own rules and just write something that she likes rather than something that has to fit in a particular form. So here we are at 108, which is a fast clip for this stuff. I'm going to talk about how to practice this in a moment. 108 is fast. So this opening articulated notes here, starting at the last 3 lines at 108. Let's just look at them. If we look at these notes here at the 3rd line, she changes it slightly. What? It's the same thing. Okay, so she's reusing her materials quite a bit. So let's talk about how to practice this section, because this section coming up is one of the sort of like is one of the first difficult technical sections. It actually lends itself to being practiced pretty well. So starting at 108, maybe you want to like start slowly as you normally do, and I'll give you an example of where I want to like start. I'm at 70. Which is maybe a little fast. Let's go to 65. I might go all the way to 60 in my own practice. Here I am at 65. I've triplets going. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, because that's pretty much where we are. I'll be thinking about this when I practice. Very broad articulation. I'm not trying, this says marcato, which means marked. Let's see what becoming more marcato. So starting out not so staccato, and trying to, so slowly I'm going. Very, very broad strokes of my tongue. No. Because we're going to have to move this tempo pretty hard. So here's 65. I'm going to just practice this a little bit. When I get to these 3/8, I'm either going to ignore them or play 2 beats, okay? Let's deal with it. Let's talk about a couple of things. That's just basically me practicing it in 3, okay, which is where you should basically start to really get that this driving idea of rhythm. And rhythm with Joan is super duper important. Okay, I think it might be the most important part of knowing how to interpret her music, and it's something that like it's her own tonality, her own key signature that she's writing in is this kind of driving rhythm. So to start out, we go towards the beat. Tick-a-da, tick-a-da, tick-a-da. We're always ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. But then as soon as we switch, here, we have it at the front of the beat. So I really like to show the difference of going da-da-da, 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 ta-da-da, ta-da-da, ta-da-da. Okay? So let me move it up just slightly so I could do that. I'm going to go to 90, take the subdivision off. Okay, again. Okay. Great. And a couple of things here to accomplish this next part is pretty hard. These octave displacements. Wank. You can see this is my teacher, Nathan. That's what he wrote here. Less air. And he's exactly right. We're kind of blasting through here. We're at forte, which for Joan is going to be a pretty elevated forte, a nice, big, strong, fat forte. When we get here, if we blow that hard through the instrument, we're really going to sort of set ourselves up for failure. So we want to do a couple of things. We want to like drive into here, tick-a-da-da, tick-a-da-da, and then bid-a-da-da, bid-a-da, did-a-da. It's not going to be that evident to everybody who listens to you, okay? And another thing about accomplishing this is here it's the most absolutely essential, important thing to make these higher notes, this B flat, this C, etc., very, very long. So when I practice them, I go. It's a pain in the ass there. So the reason that I do that is because I really, really want to continue that thought level when I'm doing it closer to tempo. Because if I try to make those octaves really, really short, remember what the word staccato means anyway. It means separated. It does not mean short. It means separated. So it's pretty hard to not separate two octaves that are being articulated. So I don't even worry about going short. In fact, I want to go really, really long. So in sort of more context, here's 90. Same spot right here. These tick-a-da-da, tick-a-da-da. Those are plenty short, and I'm trying to make them as long as I possibly can. So that really is two keys to playing this section well. Well, three. One, practice. And if I'm practicing, I do like so many reps, I kill myself with reps. I might do 10 reps at 60, 10 reps at 70, 10 reps at 80, and then go to 85 and go. I just really crush myself with reps because I want to play every note. I want to play every note right. It doesn't always work. In fact, mostly I fail at that. But that's my goal, right? I want to play every note right. So, one, practice it. Subdivision on. You know, all the way through your cycle till you get to 100 or so, right? Right? That's plenty fast, dude. It's 100. It's written at 108. But at this tempo, we're pretty much there, okay? So, and what did I do to get there? A, I practiced it. But B, I kept the same idea when I went fast as I did when I was working on it slow, keeping those high notes super long. I cannot tell you how often problematic that section can be when I play it or when I hear it. Okay? Yeah, and one other thing. Now let's talk a musical idea. So this is all leading to something. And it's all leading to this note, believe it or not, that E flat. So, kind of leading. So here, watch. So looking at these low notes. A, B, C sharp, D, and then we go in C sharp, and D, and then finally, blam. That's where we go, because in the next page, we're pretty much spending our time goofing off with E flat a lot. So that's sort of like getting to our tonic. Okay? So you really want to show this motion of going, especially in the second line here, these notes really want to lead up. Once we've taken less air and we feel comfortable, then this last bit we can really be like, let that be a real it moment. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. And then this rather famous spot that we're getting to right here. Whoops. Okay, so let's take a look. These sextuplets are really a primer etude for what's about to happen later in the piece. But this section is something that lends itself really well to being practiced in the most directed fashion. So let me do that for you. Let me teach you how to practice this section so that you never ever miss anything. Which is really the point, right? Good players practice until they get it right. Great players will practice something until they really can't play it wrong. So here I am. I've got my subdivision on. I'm at 70. I like round tempos. First thing you want to do is just get used to playing all of these little figures. So in context, I'm in 3 now. Now I'm going to play it as is. 3, 4. That's 1 rep. Okay, I would have just done 5 of those. Imagine, I just did 5. Then I keep the same tempo and I change the subdivision. I go from triplets to duples, but I'm doing it exactly at the same tempo, but I'm listening in a different subdivision. So instead of 2 notes per subdivision, it's 3 triplets. Imagine I did 5 reps of that, so now I'm up to 10 reps at the same tempo. Then I do something even crazier. I divide 70 in half, which gives me 35. I add that to 70, that gives me 105. I'm going to play exactly at the same tempo again, but I'm actually going to subdivide this in a hemiola. That is to say, I'm going to play straight 16th notes. This causes me to break down the subdivision in an even more esoteric way. 1, 2, 3. That's a brain buster, but imagine I did 5 reps of that and then finally came back to 70, my original tempo, and put 5 more reps down without any subdivision. Okay, so that was 70. We just did, theoretically, if I would have been practicing that on my own, I would have just done 20 reps in 4 different subdivisional ideas. Now, why am I so hardcore on that for myself? Well, several things. 1, at tempo, this is fast as hell. 2, I don't want it to sound like I'm not in control. I want to be in control of every note, so I'm not just sitting here going. It's not, freaking out is never expressive unless you do it on purpose. So you can also put in some altered rhythms when you practice this. Maybe something like. Or in the opposite. And the reason that I really I give myself so many different angles to look at this section with, and that sort of follows an educational principle that is ironclad for almost any level and for almost any subject, and that is that the more different ways that you learn something, the more apt you are to actually remember it. Think about when you were in elementary school and you might read about an elephant. Okay, so here's something that's crazy and it's gray and it's got a trunk and a tail. You have a general idea of it. Then you see a picture or a video of an elephant. Now you've got two different kind of axes. Now you go to a zoo and you see an elephant and you can smell it and you can hear it. So now you've internalized something not only with several different views but also with several different senses. So you'll never forget what an elephant is after that, for sure. And for me, the more different angles I can look at, particularly very difficult technical spots, the more apt I am to be able to remember it, especially when I'm under pressure, because basically what I'm trying to give myself, right, is the answer to the question. There is a moment there are many moments like this, but there's a moment in every player's life on any level where you're standing on stage and you're like, oh my God, what's next? Okay. This is to give you the answer to that question. Okay? Everybody has it. Everybody has that question, but it's really another thing entirely to actually have the answer. And to have the answer, you have to drill this into your muscle memory so much that your hands can only really reproduce the good stuff. So let's go up to around 104. We're in between tempo, printed tempo. And I actually do think that some of Joan's tempos are quite fast, and it's very American to want to make sure that you play exactly on the tempo. I want to get really close, and if I get it in the heat of the moment, I may, because your adrenaline is running, but I want to really get it around 100 and be really, 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 really solid, and then just worry about poking it up from time to time. Okay, so same idea here. At 104. So it just kind of flows, all right? So then when you put the tempo on, it's pretty sick. It's pretty sick. It's a really, really cool spot. So a couple of things just musically as I move forward. You want to make sure, look at what else I wrote here. Full. And she's right. And you start poco diminuendo, and then Joan gives you another. Oh, son of a. Joan gives you another marking here. Dolce. Dolce means sweetly. All right. So you want to what you want to do is you want to be sort of full on intense forte. This is part of the lessening of intensity that we were talking about at the very beginning, and then take it. Let me do something here. Let me do a half a page turn, and so that I can put this together. So I'm going to go from this, maybe there, here, up to the top. This is the next page. So from here to there in context. Each one of those E's, I'm like more. Okay? And let me take a sidebar, because this is a really important thing. Anytime there is a series of accents or a series of expressive markings in a row over successive notes, That's an implied crescendo. And the reason that it's implied is that it would be impossible to accent a bunch of notes the same and still have the last note feel accented. If you're just pumping away at your full volume the entire time, by the time you get to the end, you haven't done anything. You've just played loudly for a while. Okay? So you want to have you want to reserve something for the it. In that case, this is the it. There's my third. I told you that we're landing on this like a tonic. There's E flat, E flat, E flat, and then we're going to ruminate on E flat for a little bit. But I really think this third one is the landing spot. So back to where we were starting here, pointing C sharp, D, E flat 8.5, E flat 9.5, E flat 10. That's what I'm thinking. So you could do that by backing off a little bit during the note, and then really through those big notes, through the fast notes into the E flat again. Then 3 beats of a really full with a little bit of a diminuendo. And by the time I get to the next note, I'm going to actually try to change my tone quality quite a bit. Let me start at the top of that page. So by the time I get back to the top again, I'm back to this intense sound. But while I went to the dolce in the middle, I actually go from... If I were playing it the other way, I'd be going... But what I do is I back off my air a little bit, and I open up my embouchure ever so slightly, so I get more of a... If I were to play it loud, I get more of a... But I don't go that much. But so... So I take off a lot of that delicious brightness and intensity, pull it out, and then bring it back in. Okay, that's the whole musicality of this entire section here. Is coming back and then coming into this only forte. You can see that I really want to get there because Elsa writes. Come on. Sorry, the half-page turns crack me up and screw me up all the time. Let me make... Now I forgot what I was going to talk about. Doesn't matter. Oh, only forte. Only. So intensity, only forte. Okay, you're going to want to just blast out here as much as you can, but you can't. Just leave something. You got to leave something for yourself. It's plenty bright. So what I do here is I do a little fakey thing with this trill a little bit. I fake your ears out just a little bit. I start by playing the actual notes. This is D sharp, this is E, and I trill the first two regularly, and then I don't even worry about taking my sliver key off. In real life, it's a little sharp to go. Instead of... But if you could give a little bit of an oral, I don't know what to call it. You want to fool them a little bit. It's a little bit of sleight of hand. So I give the first couple, I do a real one, and then I just don't even worry about taking the sliver key off. So I go. And it's fine. This next section, there are a lot of different ways to interpret. You've got a trill, okay? So here's what this marking means. You've got a trill, D sharp to E, trill. Theoretical breath here. I don't circular breathe in this piece, so if you want to, that's fine. But there's no way I could be cranking the kind of air that I'm cranking, and which is my point. That's what I want to be doing. So what do you do with these notes? These are all separated notes while this trill is going on, or these different trills eventually, but first, just this trill. Well, some people actually separate those notes and go... I've switched, by the way, my trill from here to the middle finger, and it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's fine. I don't actually stop the notes because, again, I feel like staccato means separated and not short. What I do is I get a really tight, got a nice really tight trill going. And the way that I make a difference between the grace notes and the longer notes is I make sure that when I do the grace notes, for example, this guy here, this guy there, really short. That separates it if I do this trill and these two notes. So I really want those grace notes to just kind of feel like they're exactly in the same speed that I'm doing my trills. Then when I separate them. The other important thing is, when I'm separating these notes here, what you really want to hear is, in beat, if my beat is here, and if I can add for you music theory nerds, that's a dominant to tonic relationship that we're dealing with there. Yikes. Are you saying that traditional music theory works with this stuff too? I think I am. Okay, so now let's put that in context. I'm going to start here, do the trills, do this, and then end up on this low F sharp. Slip up in there, but that's okay. You get the general idea, right? And I'm absolutely shredding through my horn here. Like, I'm as bright and as brilliant. Yeah, bright is the wrong word. Brilliant is what I want to be here. Just like, I'm not at all concerned about being a dark clarinet player and being, oh yes, I play Brahms and Mozart. Yes, I do. Okay? This ain't that. It's related to that, but you have to bring yourself outside of that mold of always being within this perfectly classical kind of sound quality and intent that is going to make you a much better player. Now, no breath. You see this arrow. No breath between this and that, which is a big pain in the butt. So I try to make sure that I land on a E. Okay. So here's another section that looks pretty screwy, but actually should be performed as written, and I'll show you that in a second. Here's my secret weapon, high F sharp. Okay, I use this almost exclusively throughout this piece if it's not a fast note. If it's a fast note, I'll just go ahead and use it. But for longer notes with melody, with intent, for example, this one, especially right here. Long F sharp, okay, which is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. This is your normal long F sharp fingering. Okay, but it's slightly sharp. Okay, that's a problem with this note. And you can do two things by adding this key here, which is the D flat C sharp key. A, it lowers the pitch slightly, which is perfect. That's what you want. And B, it changes the sound a little bit from a very, very bright So not only does it change the pitch to where you want it mostly, but it also changes the tone quality to where you want it. You don't want it to be too bright. It's going to be bright enough. Not only that, but it's a very, very secure fingering and will always be there. It's really, really hard to break that F sharp. And this regular F sharp is pretty hard to break, or pretty easy to break occasionally. So this gives you a lot of resonance, a lot of resistance to blow through, and I use it immediately here, whoops, here, okay? So, now we have two fortes, man, and I'm really letting it fly into my horn here. But notice I don't have like, I'm not loose in my embouchure, so I'm not getting this kind of like, sound. I'm getting a boom! boom. I want like nothing but like fat wood here. Okay? So in context, and then I'm going to do this with a metronome and show you exactly what I'm talking about here. So from the trill into it, the previous trill here. Yeah, let me just wet this reed a little bit. Okay, so that's a lot of loud playing. And again, you cannot play loud continuously and still have the kind of impression of having continual accents and continuous crests. If you just crest the same way a bunch of times, it doesn't work. So let's look at a little thing that Elsa wants you to do here, which I think is awesome. Drive, of course, longer notes, long notes. And a couple of times she writes again. So, ba dee ah ah, and then start again. Ba dee da dee da dee da pa e, and this anytime she gives you a half step, that's a resolution. Okay. Notice there's another G here. Okay. Pow 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 pow. So you don't want to. You both have to like just really drive it and also give yourself some opportunities to come away from it. And you go all the way. Look at these accents. Okay. Accents, 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 accents. Again, any series of accents implies a crescendo of some sort. And she gives you accents all the way throughout until she starts to give you this diminuendo. And then we switch from accents to tenutos, which mean held instead of accented. They still want good articulation at the front, but they want to be loved a little bit more. Okay? Diminuendo, retardando means we slow down. Espressivo Elsa wants, which is right. And these again, these just are notes that want a little bit more love. And then you end up on this incredibly beautiful little almost like a horn call here, like a signal of its own. So a couple of things. One, this is taking me as long to get through it as I thought it was going to. It's fine. If it's fine with you, it's fine with me. So we'll live forever on the internet. Okay. So the other thing is I want to play this section starting at the Poco Piumoso, which has all of these kind of like odd looking subdivisions. But I'm going to play it actually as written. I'll do it a little under here. This is 100. Again, I'm going to leave off this 3. I'm just going to play it as though there's no dot there. Okay, so deal with that. I'll play all the way from here to there. And I want you to listen to a few things. 1, pounding these accents. 2, changing the articulation and the intensity. 3, bringing it a complete 180 from this incredibly resonant, incredibly vibrant note to this beautiful, controlled pianissimo dolce. All of this falls away to here. Start right on that low F sharp. In tempo. And watch my subdivisions. I'm going to try to play this as accurately as possible. Now let me take the metronome off. Okay, so I did that. You can see I'm like really strictly observing these subdivisions. Okay, now without it in context and see how this works, and then actually allow myself to devolve down to that dolce. I mean, that's really like, that's beautiful. Like she really, there could not be a more section to play, and then she really gives you every tool to bring it way back. She changes the articulation, she changes the expressive marking, she changes the tempo, she changes the dynamics, she changes even like the chromaticism of it, because all of this F sharp, you've got lots of chromatic notes in here, and B flat, blah 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 blah, and then when we end up being down here, and we have nothing but natural notes for a long time until that special note. Okay, there's 0% chance that is not intentional. This is all very American sounding. This is very Copelandy in the middle of this. You know, you've got nothing but these kind of open intervals here, which are not easy, by the way. Okay, that's really lovely writing, by the way. Not easy, but going over the top here, you want to make sure, for me, half whole every single time. Yep, yep. Just to give you a little bit of more attitude here, Joan gives us, oh, smooth, okay, I see. Oh, you see that Elsa or somebody wrote a bunch of connective tissue here, so you really want to be thinking about like really blowing air in between those notes. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful and difficult but satisfying to play. And then we get to that note, and we still retard to 60. So we're about here. And then we retard even just a little bit more to that note. She gives you that note. And it's really like, it sits outside of the context of all of those natural notes so beautifully, but so strangely and expressively. So if I were to start like where I kind of die down here, actually let me start on this B. That note is special. That note is special. And you should just really set it and sit there and let it be beautiful. Elsa says to wait after that. Wait. It's very faint on your scan, but that's what it says. Okay, so this next little section, we make pretty obvious swells here. There's that fingering again. Long F, 1, 2, long F sharp, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, E flat, and the D flat key. Yep, let me just wet this. Shredding my reed, buddy. That's how it goes. That's why I had a few lined up, but there's really only one that sounds decent today, and that's pissing me off. Right? Like... Grr. Just going to check out something else just in case. All right. So... And you want to practice that F sharp and that diminuendo just by You want to keep your air pretty fast. Don't let off of it too much. Restrict your embouchure ever so slightly so you're not getting too much. But okay, it's going to work for you every single time. I'm also in tempo on these crazy kind of like subdivided notes with the swells, okay? So don't fool yourself. You can still do that basically completely. I'll even put the subdivision on you. I'm right in the middle of it, okay? So even as I'm playing it, I really love to start that note a little less. But if I'm being honest, I don't even start it with the tongue at all. I give it a ha, da, he. Same thing next. And then F sharp, same F sharp, long F sharp. And then for that G sharp, I take everything off but just this one finger and this E flat key. This could work, but I don't have it down for this, so I'd have to put it down, which is okay, but there's no real reason to do that. There's no real difference. There's the most microscopic difference when I do that, but I don't need to, so if I start on the previous notes, this D sharp here, and that's nice and controllable, okay? That's another time we want to get your bottom jaw into the heart of the reed here, okay? Not near the tip, but into the heart, so you can just really make sure that the reed is vibrating exactly like you want it to. Exert just a little bit more direct control over the very center of your reed. And then finally, to close out these bottom 2 pages, I personally think that the first 2 pages are an extended. If you're first approaching this piece, first of all, this should not be your first unaccompanied piece. But second of all, I would approach the first 2 pages and really just learn these first 2 pages like I'm trying to teach you now. And if you can do these first 2 pages, you can absolutely play the rest of the piece. So let's just like kind of look at the context of what she's going to ask you to do here. Starting on the second to bottom line here. Okay, I'm trying to play it in context. So we're at 60, which is about 1/1000, 2/1000. Here we go. Pretty close. Even slower. Oh, and also, I'm shading very hard. When I say shading, these low notes at this, after playing for so hard, are going to bound to be sharp. So what I do, I take my pinky key, all right, let me see or my pinky finger, and I place it up against this post like it's a fulcrum. And then I can use my finger. I can really be careful about how high my finger is over the key. And if I play it loud, I can really change the pitch a lot. Right? So when I go soft, those A's are bound to be sharp. So I go ahead and I post up a lot, and I go pretty low over here. So there's another octave signal. There's her 2-octave signal, in fact, that this is the end of a large part of this piece, okay? I'm just going to talk about this bottom line really quickly, and I'm going to take a 2-minute break, and then I'm going to go back, and I'm going to continue to work, okay? So look, let's look at this pianissimo dolce to piano in this note, to mezzo piano in this note, pianissimo. So that's the barest marking. So if I'm going to interpret that, I'm going to start out really nicely slow. Nothing on the first note. Swell slightly on the second. Warm even more on that C. And then barely anything on this G sharp. Again, shading pretty hard here. Okay. And you don't want to wait too long on this because this is kind of a resolution also. There's a little scale that she likes to do. Whole step, half step, whole step. And then she just gave it to you. I'm going to see that scale in a bit more context, but it's a bit of an octatonic idea. Actually, I'll show you that whole scale. Let's go to here. See this? That's the scale. Whole step, in this case, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. So it's a combination of half steps and whole steps that goes. That's the scale. That is the only time I believe. Look, this is me. I'm a clarinet player. I'm not a theoretician. This is the only time I think that the scale that she's working off is explicitly stated to you. Okay. The other thing that I want to say is, and I'll be done with this. Oh yeah, this marking that I've written for myself here, out. By this time, you're playing it in context. You're quite tired. In fact, you're insanely tired. And so one of the things that my body forgets to do is to breathe out. Consequently, I wrote that note for myself. So I would go. You want to sometimes just get rid of all of your air, because if you keep, there's only so much oxygen that's within the air that you take in. And if you keep piling on air without expanding, without releasing the air that you have inside, the air in your lungs starts to get stale. And it starts to, what I mean by that is it starts to lose its oxygenation. Okay, the oxygen level inside of your lungs gets much lower because you haven't given it fresh oxygen. You've only been piling smaller bits of oxygen on top of the stuff that's been sitting in your lungs, which has depleted. So it's really important occasionally, especially in athletic pieces that have moments where you can just take a second to let your body get all of that out and start fresh. Okay, all right, beautiful. So that's only an hour and a half on the first 2 pages. That's great. We've only got 5 more left, but I don't think they're going to be as involved just because we've been through a lot of these concepts. So let me take a couple of minutes, take a quick pee break, change my read, and get right back on to what we're trying to talk about yonder, okay? One moment, please. All right, party people. I'm back. I tell you what, man, this is either a really great idea or a really stupid idea, but that's kind of where I live most of my life anyway, so I'm kind of okay with it being stupid. What it is absolutely going to shred me, because I can already feel that I'm tired. 90 minutes of already doing this and talking in between. It's pretty tiring. Let's go on before we start to get too bored. If you're still sticking in with me, man, thank you. That's awesome. I really, really appreciate it. Like, I hope that I'm giving you something that is interesting and valuable. I desire that very much. That's what I want. So if I'm doing that for you, thank you. If I'm not, I'll try to do better, I think. I'm going to try to do this every Friday for a different piece. Doesn't give me a whole lot of time to get work done on stuff. Like, I spent maybe 3 days on this piece before this broadcast because I only had this idea this weekend. So I had kind of limited opportunity, but generally I feel pretty good. Yeah. So again, you know, like when I play these different reads, there might be a part of you that says, hey, that sounds pretty much the same. I guarantee you it does not feel the same. It just is super fun part about being a clarinet player. All right. So here we go. Here is page 3. This is rather straightforward, actually. It can be practiced in a sort of straightforward fashion with a metronome. I just want to call your attention to a couple of things. This note sounds closer. That's from my recording notes. I thought that the microphone sounded like it was closer in the section, but I was incorrect. You can see I don't have a whole lot written here. That's just two things to take note of. One, these again. These tenuto notes. Boom. Boom. Okay. So let's look at this first little bit without the tenutos, but with some articulation, so you can kind of see what she's getting at rhythmically. She's going. So there's actually some crazy rhythm, little crazy rhythm things, but then she adds these notes. She does want you to give a little bit of extra love on all of those notes, which adds more interest to the articulation, okay? That's pretty much how I interpret that. And again, you could do that with a metronome. I'm going to do this straight up at 116. Okay, couple of things. One, it's not as fast as people generally approach this section. You really want to save a little bit for this section right here, which is going to elevate. Okay, you want to really define these tenuto notes while keeping the general rhythm together. Strictly interpret these fives. I really think that, you know, it's a metric modulation. Da 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 da. 1 2 3 4 5 1. And here again, she's going da 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 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3. Right. So it just kind of looks like second line. You know, these really subtle changes between 3s, 5s, and 4s, or 4 at the end there, really add this kind of like wobbly aspect to this that I think is really quite expressive, and I don't think you should shrink those quintuplets or whatever at all. I think they should be as is within the rhythm. Okay? Okay, so when we get to the fourth line, we have this repeated idea. It goes ba-dee-da-da-da-dum, da-dee-da-da-da-dum. What I really try to do there, it's pretty subtle, but I try to like I try to make this an illusion, to make these 5 notes da-dee-da-da-da-dum sound exactly like these previous 5 notes, but then suddenly take off into a different idea. Because we've been kind of ruminating on this for a while, these low notes. So at the beginning of that line, that could just be a repeat, but it ends up not being. She takes it somewhere else. But if you start it like it's just going to be a repeat of that, it's kind of cool. And boy, am I playing loud by the end there, okay? But what I'm not doing is letting my embouchure go loose and allow that to happen by letting my reed vibrate in a crazy fashion. I am that still has every bit of the core and intonation that I want to have on that note, and doesn't get into this, which is pretty much the typical kind of sound that you get from people when they are playing loudly and poorly. But the way to combat that is to not allow, it's really easy to let your embouchure go a little bit kind of limp and let the vibration of your reed go a little crazy, because then you can play louder. But you end up playing uglier, and that doesn't work out for me, okay? So I really want to be as loud as I possibly can, and I want to maintain the dignity of my instrument, okay? So, a couple of things, just really briefly. Again, really bring out the rhythm of the articulation, starting in this mezzo forte section that I've crossed off the forte. You can see that Elsa, these are Elsa's markings, really pointing out these expressive. By the way, half step, whole step, whole step. Anyway, yeah. So if I'm going to be really obvious about it, I'm not going to be that obvious, but I'm going to try to point them out if you're paying attention. Something like this. Oh, fuck. Now. Like, I am honking, but I'm not losing control. All right? I am just honking. Next section, this will be nice for the half page, is actually quite challenging. Okay? So we're going to be going from here to here. And how I really recommend practicing this is a couple of different ways. One, as is, nice and slow. But really, even though it says dolce, when I'm practicing this, because there's a lot of crazy over the break fingerings, I really want to be super accurate, so I kind of let my fingers slap a little bit. Now look at my left hand in context. How much Joan is asking my left hand to do. It's actually a lot, right? It's actually a lot. A lot of this sliding around. I'm really trying to keep, in true Elsevier style, my wrist fairly still, my affect being more of straightening my finger for these notes rather than doing any of this kind of thing. I just kind of want to go F, G sharp, A. Straighten, bend. Keeps you efficient. So again. Okay, that kind of, that's a little less kind of intricate. I mean, it's intricate finger-wise, but in terms of the thought process that we're going with, really play as is, dolce piano, swell to piano, piano in the middle, and go back to pianissimo. Not too fast, by the way, on these notes that I'm about to play here. Da-da-da-da-da. It's really easy to just go, but man, it's much more expressive if so first finger F sharp. I might be tempted to go 1 and 1 for this B flat here, and I normally do, but for whatever reason, it's been working for me to just go regular B flat here. And then again, not a quick right on the next one, but you want to hear all of those notes, okay? So, okay, so what I also advise here is as we, sorry, I went the wrong direction. As we move into this, that we start to heighten the tension and the excitement by adding a little bit more of directed articulation in these triplets and whatnot as we go forward. So I might be kind of going kind of subtle, but by the time I get to this, I want to be a little more pointed. Because that's such a really nice motion, actually. And there's another spot you want to show those articulations. And here's a spot where Joan starts to use a tool that she's going to use a lot, and that's a pedal. She keeps these F sharps as they are and moves up the scale. So. Okay, and that's all heightening tension by keeping one note a pedal and the other one driving up. So you really want to show that too with the articulation and with the crescendo that ends up being here, which is a moment. Okay, it's a moment. Fortissimo, more energetic, and accents all over the place. So you kind of have to back off a little bit in between where there are no accents, so that when you have accents that come back in, okay, and in typical Elsa fashion, more, okay. First finger F sharp here. So if I start here, I'm going to start here on these notes, and I'm going to go all the way through that and then end on this, okay. And there's that octave signal again. There's your signal. She's giving it to you. This is the end of a section and the beginning of another one. Okay? That's more or less straightforward. Really use your articulation, change your accents, look at your dynamics, make sure that everything is being played as written and in context. I want people to basically be able to take dictation based on my interpretation, and I want them to be able to get pretty close just by listening to what I play for them. I'm very, very strict and very much a fundamentalist when it comes to reading what's on the page. I'm not a fundamentalist about any other thing, but in terms of what's written on the page, especially from a composer that I know, especially from a composer who, even when I didn't know her, I could recognize that she's being really careful about what she's writing. So if she's being that careful, she's trying to tell me something and I should try to do it. I never ignore these directions. So meno mosso, we've got our signal here from this. By the way, again, that's why I use this first finger, because if I went side, I have to hit it so hard that it's going to be flat. So I just gonna just deal with it. And here's another moment where you could really just allow that to feel like a harmonic. Like, and when I say that, it should be like pale and not colorless, but compared to all of that stuff is just full of everything. And then just let that note hang there for a second before we move forward. All right. The next section here is not as slow as people play it, and I want to make sure that we recognize that. Okay. A lot of people play this section a little too slow, and it ends up screwing up both. It's difficult in terms of both the way that you have to execute it, and it's difficult putting it in context with the end, which gets slower. The ending of this piece is the same idea, only slower. Eighth note equals 62, so like a lot slower. Not only slower in tempo, but twice as slow in your subdivision. Yeah. So you don't want to blow your wad here. We're still in quarter to equals 100, which is right here. It's quite brisk, actually. And here Joan introduces an idea that I really think is cool, and which she's going to use to great effect in a faster fashion over the next couple of pages. And that is the idea of a double pedal. Okay? There's if you start out here, we're going, every note that we alternate with is an E. E, 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 and then all of a sudden she switches the pedal from the lower note to the upper note right here. And now we start going back and forth between B flats on the top instead of E's on the bottom. Is that a tritone? Oh my God, that's a tritone! Really? Where else do we see a tritone? I don't know. Maybe the first two notes of the piece? I don't know. Seems weird. Oh, look, there's another one. Oh my God, there's another one. There's another one. Oh geez, there's another one. Oh, look, another one. So tritone is somewhat important in this piece. Let's go back. Here we are. So pedal to the E, pedal to the G, and that to the B flat, and that gives it this really kind of squirrely kind of idea, and then breath, and then go on. So let me start on the meno mosso. And no real poco rit until here. So and that, my friends, is not easy, okay? High G. So let me just talk about that a little bit. Over the break, half holing, starting on this line for sure. C sharp, you got to slide. There's just no two ways about it. Do, yi, do. Shouldn't be a big deal. And then now here I kind of do I'm going to give you Elsa's fingerings here in 1 second. For me, I like to go D sharp, C sharp, D sharp, E, and then F, not F like I normally would, but with the sliver key down. And then G, I kind of have to really carefully go pip. So I go 1, 3, 1, 2, and E flat key. So And like any other thing, if you work on it hard enough, it goes back and forth. The reason I put the sliver key on is because this G fingering is ever so slightly high, and I kind of prepare the way of the Lord by making this F a little high as well. It's not too bad because I have my half hold down, and then really when I go there, I can just do that rather than pop it. And I promise you I worked a lot on that, okay? That's not something that happened overnight, but that's a pretty good connection. The fingerings that Elsa gives you are down here. Oh, there's only one. I have another one. So this one appears to be 1, 1, 2, 3 with the E flat key. I'm not sure what this is. I like mine better. It's a bit low for my context. I guess you could, but to me it doesn't sound as nice as this one. And the other one that she gives, I'm trying to figure this out. One is 1 and 1 and 2 and no E flat. Is that possible? I guess you could, but why not add the third and the E flat? And another reason that I chose that fingering is because it gives me a lot to push against. It gives me like a really nice... And I could really fade all the way out with that, which is pretty nice. Okay. All right, there we are. So that's the end of this piece lends itself to being in three larger sections. The first 2 pages that we worked on, whoops, I keep going in the wrong direction because this is all backwards. Like this is my music that I'm looking at. That's backwards to you. So what I have to do is I have to scan these, reverse them, resave them, and then put them into my Fourscore app as backwards. So this is nonsensical to me, but this is nonsensical to you. This is what I'm looking at. So I should prepare these for you because I'm a nice guy. Okay, let's move on, shall we? I don't need to take a break. Do you? I don't. See, I went the wrong way again. I'm a genius. Okay, so this is the start of the 3rd large section. If we go back to the page before, here's our signal again. 3 octaves this time. Hello. Hi. I'm a genius. 3 octaves this time, from this to that low G, okay? So she's giving you a pretty big signal, and even though this piece does lend itself to go into 3 sections, she only gives you a quarter rest there, and she means it. Okay? So don't take too long. Back in the day, I would have to turn pages here. Unless, well, no, I didn't. I would end up putting this music on 3 stands, 7 pages across 3 stands, and then sort of walk down the row. What's awesome is now let me take this from half to a full page of page turns. I have this little bad boy, which I will use later when I perform this for you. And this turns pages. So I can sit there with my iPad, this is my iPad here, and have this at my feet, and I'm turning pages, and I'm not even concerned about it, and I never ever have to worry about anything ever again, and no paper ever again. It's pretty awesome. Okay. I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so luckily this page is pretty straightforward. It's difficult, but straightforward. And you really want to lean into these piano da fortissimo. So not only from the note before, you have and true pianissimo. You can practice this all pretty slowly with your metronome on, of course. Here's 80, which is 2/3 of the tempo. and even though this is straightforward, it ends up actually in performance being a little bit of a challenge because you have so many similar notes hanging out here, like here and in here. You've got a lot of a lot of things that sound very similar. So in order to really play this well, you want to organize it in your mind enough that you really feel where the beats are, where the triplets are within the subdivision, because it could just end up being like, and you're like, what is that even? So instead, okay, and all I did was organize that differently in my mind, and it comes out of my horn differently. So this is another high-end example of something that I say all the time. Technical problems have musical solutions, okay? Anytime that I get to a sticking point in this, I don't think about what I can do with my fingers. I think about how I can divide the notes up, how I can subdivide differently to make my brain understand where the notes are supposed to be, because my fingers are dumb. So are yours. All of our fingers are dumb. It doesn't take much brain power to move our bodies around, right? Insects can move their bodies around. Your motor function is not an elevated part of your brain. However, the part of your brain that's constantly evaluating your playing is an elevated part of your brain. So that's where the cognitive dissonance of playing the wrong notes sometimes over and over by accident comes in, because your hands only know what you show them. And if you show them the wrong note enough times, your hands feel like they're doing the right thing for you, even though your brain might be going, why are you playing a G sharp? Your hands are going, I'm playing a G sharp because I'm a good boy. Okay? So only show the right notes. Keep showing the wrong notes and you're in trouble. Okay, moving on into this little part here. Same idea. We've got pedals here. All right? And she does this double pedal thing where she first uses the E flat as a pedal, and then she switches to the upper note, which is an A. Oh my God. I think that's a tritone. Okay. So we've gone through this. We're going to start right in this section, which is pretty cool. So. Oh. So I honestly think that little 10 seconds of music is like super genius. And she does so many different things on so many different angles to kind of put you off balance as a listener. She goes between triplets, quarter note, 16 notes, sextuplet, changes the articulation, like here slightly, and also is kind of constantly changing the pattern on you. So there's nothing really for the listener to hold on to, and it just kind of feels like one thing kind of slides into this idea, which is your landing zone. Bright, jazzy, okay? So again, from this pickup, from the F, and really set that off by doing a. And the only way that I can really show that this is different is I throw a slight bit of like fast vibrato in here, and I really go for a really bright sound. So. And then I'm back to a normal clarinet playing. So during this little section, I'm doing my Benny Goodman impression, and then right here I switch back to my Harold Wright impression. Okay. Okay, before I go on with that, I suppose you could, if you wanted to, I would not. I would never in my life do that. But if you're a Stoltzman or something like that, you might. Copeland Concerto, anyone? Copeland Concerto. Calling! Richard Stoltzman! Don't fucking do that. Sorry. Don't do that. Okay. I tried to swear. It took me 2 hours almost to really get an F-bomb out. I'm sorry. I'll try to excise that from my vocabulary for the next hour or so. Okay. After that is all bets are off. So here we are again with this double pedal. B to F, F sharp. Well, kind of. We're pedaling all over the place here. We're building to this, which is going to give us, let me do half page again. It's going to give us this resolution into that, which is a big one. Okay. So let's go with this more energetic, where I'm back in my normal technique here, and I'm going to like deal with these pedals. Let me go slightly under tempo so you can see what I'm talking about. And don't fake this one. Some people fake this fingering by going. Do you know how actually out of tune that is? Hi vey, don't do that. Okay, and here you start over again. Dee-da, 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 ta. That mezzo forte is giving you a clue that you can start over here and not have to blow the entire time. So. Really cranking that by that time, okay? I use no fake fingerings all the way throughout. I suppose you could do something like on that G, F, this C sharp to B, either go, or, oh, but man, that sounds terrible. So just deal with it. Deal with it. It's going to be rattly and big anyway. Booyah. And then look what Joan's giving me here. Whoops. Whoops. Okay. Let's talk subtext here, because there's not really any subtext, but let's just look exactly at what the composer's writing. 3 fortes. C sharp to D trill, which is going to be super bright and super loud anyway, but she's giving me 3 fortes and she's saying bright and wild. Yikes. Yikes. And she's giving me crescendos. What? And repeated accents, which you've already said implies a crescendo. Yeah. So really she's trying to tell you something here. And this is a kind of, again, challenging page. Let me give you some strategies to deal with these quintuplets. First of all, spread them out. You don't want to get an effect that goes. That's not what she's looking for. She's looking for something that goes. So I would do this a lot. This second one going up. And really spread that 5. Let's go at 100 here. It's 20 clicks under our tempo, which is around 120. It's actually hard for me to arrest my fingers enough to play a really broad quintuplet over that beat. That's a difficult section. Okay, and here's really how I practice it, and here's really where I think, this is where I sort of bust out a bunch of altered rhythms in my practice. I either think when I'm practicing, or just straight up dee da 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 da. So know what the hell it will. This is, wow, two hours straight. Okay, cool. So really, this wants to lend itself to having that really, really broad quintuplet across that fast beat. Okay, again, you want to avoid this feeling of going, it's meaningless. It starts to be hair-raising when you can sort of put all those notes in that beat. It sounds more fast. Okay, that's something that Arturo Toscanini figured out a long time ago with the NBC Symphony Orchestra in the early half of the 20th century. If you play something cleanly, super cleanly, but 10 clicks below where you would play it fast but sloppily, it actually sounds faster. All of those notes informing the middle of the subdivision of the beat make it much more beautiful. Okay, same thing with the next bit. These notes here. Okay, so then when you put this stuff in context, I'll do it a little under tempo. You want to land on these trills on the note that is printed, just for your own bit of organization. So if I'm going slowly, I'm thinking, I'm not doing that, but I'm definitely letting one of my C sharps be an anchor. Okay? All the way throughout, same thing every single time. Okay, so let me play this section in context. I'm going to start just from the notes before, actually, yeah. Maybe the line before. No, you don't need to know. How about if I just start here and we pretend? Okay, so that is a lot of blowing, man. And even when I'm practicing, I'm going that hard. Like, I don't ever allow myself to practice at half effort. Even when I'm going full speed or half speed, I'm full effort all the time. And that might not be, I don't know if that's a smart idea, because it does wear you out, but I'm a pretty big guy. I'm a pretty tough guy. I can handle it. So can you. Okay, so a couple of times there I was a little fast on my return up, but the idea is pretty solid. Okay, anchoring your technique on the downbeats. Okay, and then just really having the discipline to. Lots of repetition, lots of drill. Okay, a couple of times where you really need to come back. Okay, because you can't keep crescendoing all the time, or it ceases to be a crescendo. So and come back a little less crescendo all the way through. Anytime I see a crescendo, I try to set it up by coming back a little bit right before it, and I also allow myself to go down a little bit in my volume and then back up as I come up. Just follow the contour of these lines, so that every time you get to these crescendos, you've given yourself some area, some clay. Because if you just keep loud all the time, A, that's boring. B, it doesn't really give you any technical way to get to a crescendo, because you're already as loud as you could possibly be. Okay, and then again in this section, let's see what else I writes here. Crescendo, each D is more, and she's correct. And look, we resolve here this half step into the D sharp. Okay. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, you cannot start again. You can't start so loud. So if I come back here for sure. Da 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 back. Da 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 more, 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 and the most. Okay, let's see if I can do that. Top of the page. And oh man, I mean, I cannot possibly play any louder than that. Okay, it's probably spiking your microphone pretty hard. Cannot play any louder than that, but I'm still controlling it. I'm not going. What? I'm so directed here. I'm so strong. There's really nothing's going to happen. I stay on this a lot, and then I finally switch to holding down the register or the sliver key. And then straight into this bad boy section here, which ends up here. Now, we looked at most of this actually on the first page, okay? If we go back, and I said the first page was kind of an exercise for the rest of the piece, and there it is. This is all of those notes are in a smaller section right here. But now we're about to have a complete etude on this, okay? Because this is gnarly. And just watch what she does here. She doesn't write it all out for you. She says 4 times here, 3 times here, 2 times there. You know, she really goes very old-fashioned here with this sort of repeats. And then on the top of the next page, sorry, like this, a two note or two beat repeat. Yeah, and she also gives you this marking. Poco meno mosso, a little less, but still bright and driving. 108 or more. Okay, and then if we go back again to the very top of the second page, we are in 108 pretty much. Yeah, 108 here. Okay, 108, and then in the end she gives you way more notes with way more repeats, and then says 108 or more, poco meno mosso, bright and driving. Yeah, so you're really going for it here. Again, this is a thing that I would absolutely slow down and practice, and I would do it again. Let me go through the cycle again. I'm only going to do 1 rep at a time. I'm going to do it at 60. Imagine I do this at 60, 70, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100, and 105. Okay? 20 reps on each one of those tempo markings. Now, that's insane, but I'm a little crazy, okay? And I also can play the crap out of this when I do it correctly. So this, if you practice it this way, you will be able to play this section, and you will be able to play it accurately, evenly, and fast. I started with a straight out triplet subdivision. Here, both for the F and the trill, I just use, I take off this first finger. So I use the same trill fingering for that high F, because why not? And I'll keep going. 1, 2, 3, 1. Oops, let me get it for myself. Now just imagine that I did that exact same thing 4 more times. So there's 5 reps with the triplet subdivision. I keep the tempo the same, and I change it from a 3 subdivision to a 2 subdivision. Same tempo, same notes, but now I'm dividing my my subdivision. Imagine I just did that 5 times. So now we're up to 10 reps in two different subdivisions. And now I'm going to get a little crazy. I'm going to go half of 60 is 30. So 30 plus 60 is 90. Now I'm going to go and play straight 16th notes, 4 notes per beat. This is a hemiola. It's going to force me to play it at the exact same tempo, but play it at a completely kind of off-putting and difficult subdivision. Actually, I did not mean to leave my subdivision on. Let me just do a bit of that so you hear without the subdivision. And lo and behold, each one of these actually works out. So it's almost like Joan is an actual awesome composer. Okay, so once I've done those 3 permutations, I'm up to 15 reps at the same tempo. Then finally I take it back to the same tempo and I put 5 more down with no subdivisions. Oh, whatever. You get my drift. Okay, so what I'm trying to do there is I'm trying to look at that from like 4 very different angles. And again, it's back to that educational idea that the more different ways that you learn something, the more apt you are to learn them. And it adds the benefit of if you force your mind to subdivide in different ways when you're playing continuous notes, generally speaking, that lends your body to play more evenly because, again, technical problems have musical solutions. You're creating a musical issue and solution for yourself by changing the subdivision of the beat, changing how you organize those notes within the beat in your mind, and that forces you to have to be really, really good. Okay? So I do observe these articulations at the beginning of these. I'm not certain if it's in any other editions, like the saxophone. Excuse me, I got. That scared me for a second. Saxophone. Oof. Anyway, in the saxophone edition, I honestly don't know if these are slurred together. In my edition, they are not, and I again am a complete fundamentalist about observing precisely what's printed for me in the score. And what's printed for me in the score is that each one of these have a beginning to the articulation. And I actually think that works really well to propel you forward, to make it more driving. You don't have to give like a huge accent or anything like that. But let me go closer to tempo now. Let me go to 100. And if I'm driving it and I just go, It's to me it's not it's a little meaningless. So I really want to give that impression of a beat to start out with, because we're coming from a trill, which doesn't really have a beat. And then finally, okay. So even though I didn't spend the time to work this up, I mean, today to go up incrementally by increment by increment, it's still pretty solid rhythmically when I get to the top tempo that I'm looking to get to. And that's all about how you work on it on the long term and on the short term, how you run up to it. If my goal is 108, then on the first day that I'm like learning this, even when I come back to it, I might have my goal might be 85 or 90. I'm really unconcerned for the most part with bringing things up to tempo. I really have learned over the course of my life that if you work on things correctly and you allow yourself to learn them in the proper fashion, then the speed will come. It's like the when will get there, W-H-E-N, when will get there if your how is right on, okay? So don't give yourself synthetic deadlines, synthetic things. I want to have this up to tempo by this week. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Okay, what you want to be thinking about is I want to drill this in the correct possible way this week to give a legitimate attempt to get up to tempo, because speed by itself doesn't mean anything. I could talk faster and it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean anything at all. It just is weird. Speed is meaningless. Okay, the context of what you're using the speed for, and the evenness and control of your technique and musicality within difficult sections is the separating factor between good musicians and great and really, really fine musicians. Between clarinet players or saxophone players and musicians, there's a big difference. There are a lot of players, only a handful of musicians. Okay, so here we are again with this pedal trill. Same ideas we had earlier in the piece, right? Right here. Okay, this is our original tempo at 108, and here we are at 108 or more, and then she gives you more, più mosso, 144. So we're really cranking it. 144 is fast. Right, so the same idea at 108 has some urgency. But at 144 has a lot, super urgency. Okay, and again, I don't like to separate those notes. I don't like to go. I don't want to separate it on both sides. It doesn't really make this trill continuous for me. I keep hearing it stop and start. Yikes, I hate that, okay? I want this the optical illusion to be, or the sonic illusion to be, that I'm purely trilling the whole time and there's another instrumentalist throwing those other notes in. Is there anything about those notes that's not long enough or separated enough? I say no. I say no. So let's look at these trill fingerings. I'm going just middle finger here. So B flat to F. This one coming up right yonder. You could do two ways. Since I'm here on the middle finger anyway, I just take off this. This is kind of, I'm half holding. Here's your trill. It's one note or one finger. Okay, that's a really nice and easy and in tune trill. Next one, E to F is just as written, and then E to F sharp as printed. I'm sorry. I'm being silly. It's this. Okay? And then F to G flat. You could finger F normally and trill with this bottom right side key. It's nice. And then for the F to G trill that's coming up, this one right here, just lift up this ring finger. That's what my other mistake was. So, okay, and you got to really voice that carefully, otherwise it's going to get a little squirrely on you. Let me see if I can do that in context, starting with these trills here. Okay, so marcato. So I give it a really like medium, shortish, medium, longish. Then she changes the articulation to tenutos. And that A flat fingering you can use 3-in-1 and the E flat key, or just a right hand one. It's whichever one you feel comfortable with. It's marginally different. Not worth spending any time worrying about. Whichever one feels good. And then again, look, this is very typical of Joan. Marcato, tenuto with legato. Okay, so 3 subtle but actually different articulations. Okay, and so these are the kind of differences that you're absolutely going to want to bring in. So, and 3 its. Okay, here's Elsa again. First it, and then but this one. This is where we're going to this A flat. Half step again. This is a half step resolution. So starting on that meno mosso, low G. And I like to go for this high A. I add this B key. You could do it with just a voicing thing. I'm not changing much, but I want to lower the pitch ever so slightly. So you could leave this off, but I leave it on. Actually, I kind of like it without today. And that's a hard decrescendo. We got to make sure again that we're pressing with our jaw into the heart of the reed, not near the tip. You don't want to restrict this vibration, right? You've only got a little space here for your reed to vibrate. Like that's a teeny tiny aperture. You don't want to stop it. If I press here, it doesn't close the reed off. If I press here, it closes the reed off. So I'm pressing here to control it instead of to try to stop it. And then finally, we're getting to the end, and here's our it. So we've been going, and then finally, yeah, I basically shredded this reed now. I told you that was going to happen. It really does, it really will shred your reed. That's why I brought my army with me. I'll show you that in a second. Oh, what the? Super nice. Super nice. That's excellent. Thank you, Reed. Super. Zupa. All right. Let's finish this off so I can get a performance of this in for you, okay? So... So she uses that entire period to come down from this really high. So if I just do the last one. Okay, and that's our 4-note resolution. Okay. As part of that cell of octatonic notes from before, it's only the opening part of it. So you don't want to take too big of a gap, which in this breath here. And that's the resolution, which goes here. There's your signal. This is your closing signal. There's that octave again. Okay, and how's this? Closing on D. Consider this our tonic. We end on F sharp. We end on a third. We end on the tonic third, buddy. It's there's a lot more to this than goes on. So again, pianissimo. That I don't even worry about counting. I'm not counting for the first time here. I'm just playing this a very, very long, very, very big crescendo note. Okay, and near the end, I'm going to vent. I'm going to vent my fork, and I'm going to vent this E flat key because it's going to get sharper or flatter as I go louder. So if I play that D, just this peanut 3PD. Nice. So look, there's that high F sharp fingering again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, E flat, and this key. This is the no pun intended. This is the key. This lowers the pitch and adds resistance. And with a good read and with a fresh aspect, it's quite nice. Like that F sharp is really good. So just let's look at a couple more things before I take my break and then play this for you. Here we go. More than twice as slow. It's quarter equals 100 when this figure shows up the first time. Now we're eighth note equals 62. Circa. Around 62. Also dolce and super smooth. Thanks. Thanks, Joan. I didn't know that. I couldn't tell. Now, here's what Joan does that's a real pain. I've never performed this piece in public, and at this point, at the end, not felt like I might have to pee on myself. And I'm being very serious about that, because it really is like, this piece is like asking you to run a lap around a track as fast as you can, and then hold your breath for 30 seconds. Okay? That's really hard to do, okay? When she's asking you to be pumping out fortissimo, 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 accents, high notes, low notes, pound, 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 and then, oh, I'd like you to be, dolce and super smooth, and I'd like you to fade out on a high F sharp. What are you doing? I mean, obviously you can see it's possible, but man, is that hard. And it really is hard in context as you get to the end of the piece in real life. All right. That is pretty much my treatise on this. I'm always happy to answer more questions. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to stay on cam. Maybe take 3 to 5 minute break. And then I'm going to play this from top to bottom, and then that's going to be it. So I thought this might run 3 hours, and I'm correct. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. I'll give you your lovely... Am I in half pages or... Okay, let me first change this to whole pages. Dun, dun, dun. So, no! Yarg. There we go. That's wings. Whoops. Whoops. Adjust my camera here slightly. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, bada boom. There we go. Shit. Technology. I would really love a split screen on this bad boy so I could do this whenever I wanted to. Okay, this should work. I've got my handy dandy foot pedal so that while I am going to have to turn actual pages, I'm going to be able to turn your pages like this. So don't get mad at me when you hear the sound of paper being flipped. I don't like it any more than you do. All right. So I'm going to swab out here. I have condensation in my horn. Always from the bottom, everyone, please. You've got this nice funnel. Use it. Use it. Do not swab through from the top end of your clarinet. The reason that you do that is because you have some sharp edges here. Not sharp, but like nice sort of clear edges as you get to the bore of your clarinet, and you don't want to wear those out at all. You don't want to smooth those down. You want everything to fit snugly and tightly like it did when it was born. All right, let me take a pee break. Let me walk around my house for 2 seconds. Let me make sure I have the exact right read I want. And then it's going to be on like Donkey Kong, and then I'm going to take the rest of the day off and feel really, really, really good about it, okay? So everybody, let's take a moment. Say hi to my mom. What's up, Mom? And then I think I have to play Pokemon Go with my son. I believe this is the next thing on the schedule. Thanks for sticking around. All right, let's do this. And then I'll be done. Come on. All right. Show you my studio real quick while I'm kind of chilling out. So this is where I practice, obviously. Over here is my clarinet. Got my water, got all that stuff. Here's my bar slash refrigerator area, coffee area. My trusty art made by my lovely friend Linda Plotkin. And out there is New York. Somebody walking by with a mask on. Okay. This is where I pretty much spend 90 to 95% of my time. Oh yeah, also the important part here, yeah, there's my PlayStation and my Xbox and my Switch. Right now we're streaming directly from this PlayStation here, which is pretty nice. Pretty nice thing to have. Okay, boom. Boom, 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 boom. All right. So again, this is part of the either genius or dumb idea about this, is that like playing this fresh under the best of circumstances is difficult. Playing it after talking about it for 2 hours and 40 minutes and playing through parts of it is going to be really hard. But that's how much I love you. And that's how much I'm going to make things happen here. Okay? Let me back off a little slightly so you can actually see my whole body. That'd be nice. My face and shit. And stuff, I mean. See, I'm reaching the end of my my shelf life using no foul language. Maybe. Maybe. Let's see. Let me put this ligature on and see if this works. And if it does, I'm just going to do it. That's pretty close. It's not too bad. I'm going to go with it, I think. Organize my pages real quick. 5, 6, 7, 3, 4. It's like old school. I haven't done or had to arrange my pages like this for a long time. But I'm letting you use my iPad because, again, that's how much I love you. All right. So imagine that I'm using my iPad and there are no page turns. That's what we're going to do. Okay, you ready? Let's do this. Man, the first note is such a pain, but here we go. Ready? There we go. Ah. Oh man, woo, God. I'll tell you what, at the end of 2 hours and 51 minutes, that is hard. Woo! But not too bad, you know, some little things crept in there, but whatever, what are you going to do, man? After 2.5 hours of this piece, talking and playing, generally, I liked a good 80% of that, which is pretty good. You know, and you just fight for that last note for every bit that you have. Just fight for it. You know, you're so tired. You're very, very exhausted by the end of this. And you have to, like, fight. You just have to say, I am not going to give up at this last slow part, because it is very, very challenging. In fact, you know, Elsa, she wrote a piece, Joan did, she's written a lot of great clarinet music. She wrote a piece for Elsa, my teacher, and her trio with her husband and a pianist, clarinet, violin, and piano. And when she asked Joan to write the piece, she said, can you please not finish this one high and soft? Because the concerto ends that way, this ends that way, and the quintet, I think, ends that way. And so she was like, please, can I have a bang-up ending? And can I also not suffer at the end after I've worked so hard to make your stuff happen? Okay, so that is the completion of my treatise on wings. I hope that this was educational, and I hope that you got something out of it. And I hope I hear a lot of good performances of this coming out. And good luck to you. Thanks for sticking around for 3 hours. I really, deeply, beyond appreciate it. I'll be back next week with maybe something else. You never know, friend. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.